it's so different than what you're really like kind of experiencing in life. But the what if, what you were saying a second ago, like I use the what if in the future rather than the recalls of the past, because for me at least the future is scarier. I mean, the past, we already know what happened in the past. The future is something that's unknown, and that's like probably one of the scariest things for me to think about, at least. So that's where that's typically the place that I go to.
You are Eric Lingwald, and this is the unseen word.
Will Buie Jr., our guest today. I have known Will for a long time. I know his family, his wonderful parents. His sister was once a student of mine. Will is a wonderful young actor who has had quite a career. Even though he's only 15 years old, I met Will when he was 8 or 9, and at the time he had booked a project called Gifted. He went on to book a variety of other projects, including Stephen King's In the Tall Grass, which was one of my favorite auditions I've ever worked on with one of my students. And he's most well known for his character Finn on the TV show called Bunk'd, which is one of the biggest Disney shows ever. And so he has had quite the fun career. Will is a wonderful actor, very talented actor, and he's just an all-around great person. Oh, he's also obsessed with cars, which we talk a little bit about. He says cars and acting he's equally obsessed with both. So really fun conversation with Will, and I look forward to you all learning about his journey and just what an awesome guy he is.
I think that acting it's really just like, you'll hear this sometimes where it's just like a slice of life, right?
Yeah.
So a scene is just a slice of life. I think, have you ever heard of Margie Haber?
I've not.
Okay, so she's an acting coach in LA. And she's been around for a long time, specifically focuses a lot on auditioning and what have you. Anyway, that was a term that I heard her use where she said acting is just a slice of life. Like, it's not about a scene. It's just taking a part of life and sharing it with people, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was a fascinating way to look at it, because when you're acting, you're telling the story of someone through your lens, right? And I think what's fun about it is that when you're telling that story, you're Will Buie every time, right? Even if you're in tall grass covered in mud.
Yeah, or like...
True story.
Yeah, dramatic.
True story. Tall grass covered in mud.
And LaCroix and coffee grounds.
That's true. And that will make more sense. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Sure. But I think it's one of the coolest parts about this acting thing, is that you get to find fascinating people, or maybe they're not that fascinating, but people, and then you get to bring them to life through yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So in terms of fascinating people, what do you think it is? What do you think it is about acting? Like, the funny thing about me is, as an acting coach, I get to act all the time, but I don't have to worry about any of the stuff.
Yeah, like the
auditioning, or
the
like
technique
or the pressure of it. Well, I mean,
yeah, technique's not the right word, but like the stress of feeling like it has to, like you have to be perfect.
Right. I get to just play in the room.
Yeah.
Now, of course, sometimes playing in the room ends up
being
in a movie. Now, not me, but I get to help facilitate that process. And I think for me, that's where I really find the enjoyment, right? So this show's called The Unseen Work, right? So it's the stuff that most people don't get to see. Yeah. And so when we think about all the auditions that you've had and the classes and the workshops, just all of the training that you've had. But in terms of what it is that fascinates you with people, or with in terms of acting, what do you think it is that you love about this so much? And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
well, so I actually wrote an English essay on this, I think like a couple weeks ago. And for me, I, like in public or just like normally, my normal state is pretty like more upbeat and kind of happy on the happier side of things. But like a lot of time that's not truly how I'm feeling. It's just I get happy whenever I'm like around people and well, people that I enjoy being around.
Sure. Maybe you get happy around people you don't like too. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you have a weird thing
Yeah,
where
I'm like, oh yes.
here's this person that
Yeah.
I hate. I love it.
There's a lot of fascinating people that I've had to deal with. Not deal with, but that I've had to spend a lot of my time with during the day.
Sure.
And everybody goes through that. And I feel like a lot of it is just kind of I like to go into things thinking like I'm going to be your best friend until like you consistently try and like bring me down. And that's the way that cuz I don't like to go into like meeting new people or like friendships starting from a negative tone cuz that's not going to get you very far. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's why whenever people like don't because there are people that don't like you in this world, like that's just how the world works.
Yeah.
And when there's people that don't like me, I like take it really personally. I'm like, because I wonder like what did you do to me? And this kind of goes back to what I was saying about my English essay, but acting is like my outlet because I don't typically express a lot of my emotions. I like to stay like happy and I like to put people in a good mood rather than like if I'm having a bad day. I mean, and of course there's exceptions, like whenever I'm with my family, like I'm not gonna like try and put on a face because it's my family and I love them. And I feel like when I am sad and I do have a lot of bottled up feelings and emotions, I like to use the characters that I play at the time or like auditions that I'll have, and I kind of get to put my current feelings and try and relate the character to my like life because that's how I stay me when I'm in the scene, like thinking about things that are relevant to my life, because a lot of times you'll get auditions or have roles that there really is no connection to, like being stuck in a field of grass. Like I don't
just so people understand.
Yeah.
They're like, why do they keep talking about this field of grass? So you're in a movie. You're in a movie.
I'm rambling here.
You're in a movie called
In the Tall Grass.
In the Tall Grass, and it was written by
Stephen King.
Stephen King, pretty awesome.
Stephen King and his brother.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. Which, by the way, Stephen King's book, it's called On Writing. And so it's Stephen King's sort of autobiography and a book that talks about the process of writing. So like if you're a writer, it's a wonderful book for you to read, to learn about how to write.
That's interesting.
But it's also an autobiography. So you get to learn about his story, which his story is pretty wild.
I've always been so fascinated by like how does someone have all those ideas about
he's
like creepy things?
He's a very peculiar individual, but brilliant, right?
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievably brilliant. But
incredible.
But yes, so In the Tall Grass, which was a movie that you were in, we taped that audition, and I coached you in this room right here. Yep. In fact, you were probably standing right near where I am right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that audition, your character was living in this tall grass.
Yeah, because my character he was on a family road trip, and then we heard screaming from inside the grass. We were like, oh my gosh, we have to go help them. So I'm an only child, and my parents and I just like run into the field trying to find them. Of course, we get easily separated because it's so hard to explain the story, and like most people that have watched the movie that like come up to me, they're like, they still don't really understand it. Yeah. But like the grass manipulates like your location, so if you just walked in, and you're like, the grass moves you basically. Right. Unless, I see what you're saying. Unless you're dead. So, yeah. So
that sounds very Stephen King.
If you're dead, you won't get moved.
Right.
But if you're alive, but then if you're dead, you turn into grass. Anyway.
So that audition, we taped here in this room, and in that audition, when you talked about LaCroix and coffee grinds, your character progressively got had been in the grass for longer, and so kind of got...
Yeah, the movie starts where I've been in the grass for a long time. And it starts with two other, like, young 20s, like, brother and sister. I scream to yell at them to help me because I was possessed, because in the center of the field, there's this, like, giant, like, rock. And it's basically, like, where all of the power of the grass is, like, contained. And if you touch it, you get possessed by the grass, and you literally can't leave. So, but you know how to leave. You just can't, like...
because it's, like, it's keeping you there.
And what was funny about that audition, we tried to film it, like, a couple days before, but, like, for some reason, whenever I'm in an audition room, and I haven't figured out whether it's because of nerves or maybe, like, the lighting...
Yes.
My eyes.
Yeah.
I would blink like crazy, and I could not stop blinking.
Yeah.
And we had to reschedule it because I could not stop blinking.
Well, that's so common with actors, especially ones that are just starting. And you got to remember, there's all these lights.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. I think when you have the nervous energy and you're trying to recall, one of the things we often do when we're trying to recall something, we blink or we look up. It's like if you squeeze your eyes, it's like you're trying to think, right?
Yeah.
And so if you think about blinking, it's these moments where once I blink, I can then close off here and I can think. And then if I open my eyes, now I have to deal with reality. But so in those fleeting moments, it's like, okay, my line, I have this, and it's like all these blinks.
Mm-hmm.
But then the trouble is, if you try to not blink, you're still focused on blinking. So in turn, you blink more.
Yeah.
Because it's like the whole where focus goes, energy flows, right?
It's like an unconscious habit that you can't.
Yeah.
It's so hard to control.
But you can through consistency and repetition and just practice, right? And also, I think the key is not to not blink. Just like you never want to not do something, you want to take the contrast and instead do that. So instead of me not blinking at you, I'm going to just look at you. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pick one eye, and I'm going to just talk to you. And then and it's not going to be, I'm not going to try to keep my eyes open because that's not going to work. But if I just look at your eye and I talk to you for a while and I know that I want to make sure I stay connected with you, then it's really easy. Although I would probably pick this eye because the camera's over there. And I would just look at you, and then so I'm just looking and I would have a conversation. And I might say, okay, well, that's great, fine. And, then here we are, we're having a conversation and I'm looking at your eye and we're just doing this and I'll just keep looking and looking and looking and looking and, and then eventually maybe I'll have a blink. But then at that point, at least.
It's not, you've had a long period where your eyes have been open.
Yeah. But that's funny, right? So that's a great example, though, of something where, I don't want to say it failed the first time, but kind of.
Yeah.
I mean you came in to do the audition and couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then had to leave, come back.
Like a day later.
Yeah. And did the audition and booked it. Which I think that's also a testament to work ethic and drive and the willingness to not to, because maybe some people would have just accepted the fact that, okay, it's just not going to be as good as it needs to be.
Yeah, and then just give it.
Whether that was the coach or the actor, right? Because I think, because I kept telling you that you were blinking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I was
but I could have not, right? I could have just said, okay, well, you're blinking a little too much. I could have not made as big of a deal.
Yes.
And accepted it for what it was. And who knows? Maybe then you don't book the job. Right? Now, I'm not trying to say that, like, because of what I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say that. But I'm just saying the point of it is we never know what the effects are of settling for mediocrity.
Yeah.
We never know if we settle for good enough, what does that mean down the line? Yeah. Right? And especially with auditions, when there's so many auditions, like, we wouldn't necessarily think, oh, it was because of the blinking. That's why I didn't get it. But maybe, if they're watching and they're like, oh, God, I like this kid, but he keeps blinking. And then in their mind, they're thinking, I don't know if we can get him to not blink. That's a hard thing to get someone to do.
Yeah, I mean, because that's like the only time that they've probably ever seen you, the casting directors have. And if their first impression is that you're blinking 24/7, then they're going to, like, kind of be worried about that. And, like, think, is this something that he does 24/7, or is it just a one-off? Because they don't know. Right.
And then it's like, is it worth our time and energy to figure it out even Or do we pick Kid B, who we also like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe we don't like him as much, but he's not blinking.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And that's kind of a funny thing to think about, right? The fact that you got to be in a Stephen King movie, just so cool, right? I mean, I just think that's such a cool thing. Playing such a bizarre, weird, fun character. But to think, blinking,
Yeah.
like
Little tiny things that you would never think about the struggles would, like, when I would, before I was on a Stephen King movie, if someone told me that, like, I would be on a Stephen King movie, I wouldn't be thinking, oh my gosh, what if I won't be able to stop blinking? Like,
right,
I don't.
Right.
You don't
You're
think
never
about
thinking that blinking. You're never
Yeah.
thinking that blinking is going to be the thing that changes your career.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is. But this is, I think, where it does come back to the work, your work ethic. We were talking before about how you get to do this thing where you get to feel your emotions through your characters, and how acting. I want you to talk a little bit about that too, where acting for you, it's kind of like, it's almost like therapy in a way.
Yeah.
It's therapeutic, at least, right?
Yeah. I wrote that exact same sentence in my English essay. I was like, acting is my therapy.
And so talk about it.
So, for me, at first you might think, like, some people might think that it's a little bit confusing to try and relate your current emotions into something else, and then try and think about that while you're trying to think about the lines. And there's so many, like, different little moving parts that you have to have, like, ready in your head. And what I do, my process is I kind of, like, I still keep in mind the situation that character is going through, that, like, audition, like, what's going on in that role. But I just try and, instead of think about, like, oh, what if, like, like, someone's cat is dying, and I have to be, like, crying for that. Instead of thinking about, like, the cat, I would maybe, like, cross off cat and then write, like, the name of my dog, or, like, something.
You
like,
would do that on your script.
yeah, something like some things like that, where it's just subtle changes that don't make a big difference to the script, and, like, you wouldn't, like, the casting director wouldn't know that I changed. I mean, unless I said, like, the name of my dog out loud, or if I said, like or I didn't say the cat or something like that. But it's little changes that are unseen
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, good job.
that, like, that kind of help you, or help me at least, because everyone has different styles.
Sure.
Like, that's just kind of how I like to work,
Yeah.
or not work. That's how I like to roll. Like,
Yeah. No, but
Yeah.
that's how you like to work. It is work.
yeah,
That's
it's-
definitely
oh,
the
it's
work.
definitely work. Yeah,
Yeah. I think that's great too, because I've heard stories, and I don't know if it's true or not, but Henry Thomas, his, like, famous audition for E.T. I'm pretty sure I've shown it.
Oh
in
no,
classes.
I watched the video on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
So I'll show that a lot to some of my students. But supposedly his dog died or something. Like I don't know if it was, like, right before, or he had gone through something traumatic though. So when he auditioned for E.T., he had that sort of underneath it all. And in that scene that where he books the job with Steven Spielberg, he's talking about this alien, E.T., who they're going to try to take away. But for him, maybe he's thinking about
Thinking
this
about something
dog
else.
that was just taken away from him.
Yeah,
And he's thinking about fighting for his dog to not die.
yeah,
And if you just think about that, right? This boy who's fighting, please don't take my dog away, please, right? You know,
Yeah.
and he's like, no, he has to stay here with me. And if you think about that, it makes perfect sense.
yeah. It does.
Doesn't matter if it's an alien or whatever else. What matters, and this is where I think it's a really fascinating part of the craft, is that what the results are, that's what matters in terms of the project, the character, the story. So my point is, if I use X, Y, and Z to get this final product, and this final product tells the story better than any other way I could tell the story, then this is the best thing for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that something is, let's say in the scene your cat dies, but you're actually thinking about one of your best friends who did something that was like really upsetting to you,
Mm-hmm.
and it really hurt you. And that was something that you could connect to, right? Or maybe you're thinking about, okay, your cat dies. Well, you can't relate to that, but you could relate to something happening to one of your parents,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, and that's what I do a lot too, where I think about, like, there's this one music video to a song. Music really helps me kind of like start to feel like kind of the emotion if it's like a more intense, like, sadder scene.
Mm-hmm.
And like I try and, like, in the music video, it sounds very gruesome, and people might think that I'm like crazy for like even having like thoughts like this, but I put whoever in that music video, like, is whoever's in that music video, instead of it being that person, I just, in my head, I switch it to like one of my parents or something like that. And that's kind of how I like, because if I haven't watched the music video in a while, then I'm like not going to remember what the other person looks like in it, so I'm just going to be thinking about my mom in that like position.
So
And
you're thinking of this music video, you're an actual music video.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the
But
name
you're
of the song.
you're putting your mom there,
Yeah.
and then you're connecting the sound of the music, right?
Yes.
With the visual of your mom,
Yeah.
right? And so this is a lot about our senses, right? And
Mhm.
doing like sensory exercises and thinking about what it feels like. And by the way, this type of stuff is used for therapy. There's something called Gestalt therapy, where like you will do things like reframing, where basically you will go into your childhood. I've actually personally done this, and it's crazy.
I think I did something similar. Like, don't you like I think that it, like, a little way of it is where you have two different little like pods in your hand, and then it tries to connect the left side of your brain and the right side of your brain, and then they work together to like change the thoughts.
I don't know. That sounds fascinating, though.
I think I
maybe it's part of the same thing. But this one is where you literally go into your childhood and you act out the child who you were and express what you wanted to really express in certain moments from your childhood. So you're acting. And so in these types of workshops and this type of therapy, personal development work, what have you, you take on your child, you bring your child up, and you, in essence, stand up for that child. And so you're acting it out, and then they have somebody else in the group play your parent.
Mhm.
And so it's acting.
Yeah.
But they're using it to literally reprogram your brain so you're not messed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my point is, if you as an actor are getting to do this without, like, you're getting to do this proactively, where you're getting to feel what you really feel for real.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting to take these emotions that you might have and express them through a character. Well, I think the cool part about that is it's like a cathartic experience. You get to have this experience where it can cleanse you emotionally because you got to go through it
Yeah.
in a scene. But what's beautiful is you get to do it in make-believe world.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to actually go through your parent in the music video.
Exactly. Like, it's like you're at the end of the day, like your mind is still telling you, like, it's not actually happening, but if it were to happen, like that's what your thoughts would be like, but you know that, like, everything's fine.
Everything's fine, right?
Like,
but I wonder too, like, what if they could study the psychological effects of actors' brains.
yeah.
Who have gone through a lot of, and then also study their brains from different techniques, right? So there's sort of like emotional recall, where some actors will recall things in the past that have happened. There's sort of this what if, right? What if this happened? Other times, maybe you just connect with the actual scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe your connection is this moment, and I'm in this moment with this other actor creating this in my mind, right? but it would be fascinating to see the psychological effects of all of this in terms of the actors' brains and what it has done for them emotionally in the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's such a hard like topic or like hard thing to describe, like, because at the end of the day, like, it's trying to explain what your process and thoughts are that's going on in your brain. Like, it's not something that's easy to describe. Your brain is so complex, and there really is no perfect way of describing like my my exact thoughts. I don't know how to convey that like emotion, but basically I don't even know. Like, it's just hard because it's so different than what you're really like kind of experiencing in life. But the what you were saying a second ago, like, I use the what if in the future rather than the recalls of the past, because for me at least the future is scarier. I mean, the past, we already know what happened in the past. The future is something that's unknown, and that's like probably one of the scariest things for me to think about, at least. So that's where that's typically the place that I go to.
Yeah, I think the other cool thing about the future, and this is where, you know, there's different acting techniques and different beliefs of what works and what. Well, there are some who believe that if you are always using this emotional recall of things that happen, it starts to lose its impact.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what ifs, I mean, you could do what ifs, infinite number of what ifs. Not to mention, too, if you're always bringing up something of the past, like, what is that? There might be some other components to that could adversely affect you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's cool, though, to talk a little bit about the actual process, because like in the tall grass, there were some very emotional moments.
Yeah.
And like when we did that audition, I mean, you're screaming and crying, and you've got LaCroix
running around like
LaCroix and coffee grinds.
And I'm like a neat freak OCD person, and I could feel all of the little. And I had a shirt that was like
ripped,
all cut up. It was like.
Yeah, that was fun. It was a very fun audition, but it's interesting too now if people are watching you in the film, or if somebody watches you, let's say in a project, and they see you get emotional in a project, somebody could be looking at you and be thinking, "Oh, I wonder what he's actually."
Yeah, what I'm actually thinking about.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. Yeah, so all this stuff we're talking about too is very complex.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very challenging, and it's not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think about all the times where we did auditions where you had to get emotional. And in particular, when you were younger, I was thinking back to one where I'm not sure you actually said anything. I believe it was a movie with Al Pacino. Yeah, so it was a movie, and I can't remember what it was. Do you remember? Like, it was from a long, long time ago, way before we were in this studio. And you're in the corner, and you're kind of like you were on the ground, and I had you like, and a police officer or like a detective comes in.
Wait, I know of one, and I remember one. I got a call back for it, and it was like where I was like kneeling on the ground, and I like had just watched my dad being hung.
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
Wait.
No.
Yes, I think that's it.
I mean, that's the one that I remember where I was like kneeling on the ground, and then like.
And are you talking to is there like somebody coming in?
Someone was trying to ask me questions.
Yeah, I think that was maybe about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Give or take. But I remember that audition. I remember it vividly, just in terms of you being on the ground. We were across the street. So,
yes,
yeah, it was probably
yes.
about 6 years ago. We were at a different studio. And you were on the ground, and you were just sobbing. And then in the scene, I think like a detective comes in to talk to you, or somebody comes in, like child services, or somebody comes in to talk to you. And I remember you just looking up with these eyes, and you were so sad. And you were, and you know, so my point is,
I want to see that audition.
Yeah, I'm sure I could find
I
it.
can't. I'm trying to remember it, but I can
I
only
even think
remember like
I
a
think
little...
I even remember you had a red shirt on. I could be wrong, but I think I remember that.
Okay, we have to try. And
Yeah,
figure
yeah,
out this
yeah,
one
yeah.
out.
Well, I'll look for it. We have it somewhere because we archive all of our tapings. So anyway, but my point is, this is 6 years ago, and so think about all the auditions you've done where you've had to dive into that emotional stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and you've had to bring it to the surface, and then maybe do it again, and then do it again, and then if you got a callback, do it again, and then if you book the job, like in the tall grass, do it again and do it again. So my point is, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, this thing that you do, this acting thing, it's a lot of work, not just on set,
Yeah.
off set, and going through all of that. And so, you know, for you. You know, I think back to when we first started, you had that little, and I say that little because I think of like
A little like
literally
4 foot
when I
little blonde kid.
yeah, when I go back to when we first met, I think like the two things that were the most significantly different was you were very tiny and I had no gray hair. No gray hair at all.
Talking about your gray shirt.
I know. I brought that up earlier. I'm wearing a gray shirt and it brings out my gray hair. Something I never thought about in my life. And I was like, oh, I see more gray hairs because I'm wearing a gray shirt. Anyway, but I think about you even as a kid, a little kid, you still kind of had that work ethic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when that video that we were just watching from the class,
Yeah.
you were so driven to make sure that we did that performance as well as it could. And when I told you that you were going to be like the conductor and it was going to be like a train where each of you come in, you got a conductor's hat.
Yeah.
And you were driven though. So it's like, this is not something, you know, Bunk'd, obviously you booked that at an early age, but long before Bunk'd, you had this sort of work ethic. You had this drive inside of you, and that's what I'm very curious about, right? Because everybody sees the booking of the job, right? Mm-hmm. Well, at least everybody can see that, right? They can see it. They can see the final product, which is like this much of what actually happens.
A snippet.
It's just a snippet. It's a tiny little bit. But it's all the other stuff that fascinates me. I think that's why I love being a coach, because I get to just bask in all of that.
Yeah, so
I don't
you get
have
to see everything.
I get to see all of it, and I get to be a part of that process, the process, right? But when you think about you as a little kid, like, did you notice, like, when you were little, like, something was different? Like, you were more focused or driven, especially in terms of this acting thing? Like, did you see it in other places in your life?
That's such a good question. Because it was so long ago, it can be hard to recall on a lot of those memories, but I always have like a little kind of vivid, like something that I'll always remember, like, and it's a lot of like unconscious things that you can't even personally remember, but it shaped your personality and the way that you like work in the future. Like, I was talking to my mom about this, like, I think a week ago or something, but like, for example, like little things that happened when you were like a child or like a little baby before you could even truly understand what things were, they stay in your head and you remember them forever, but even though you couldn't really recite it or something like that. I don't know if that made any sense. I hope it did.
But these things that were happening,
and it shapes who you are as a person. Like,
sure.
I was referencing it to my dog. Like, my dog's like, she's still a puppy and she was still a baby, and like when she was little, she got really scared by like a pot that was like banging or something, and then now all of a sudden, like, she's scared of anything that's like metal. Like anything that's like metal or shiny, like that looks like a pot.
Yeah.
It's something that terrifies her, and she probably won't even remember why she's so scared of them. It's just something that she always remembers, and I think that could be sort of what it's about. I think because something, the way that like my brain's wired, I don't know how to describe it without sounding like odd. Like,
well, we'll try to explain.
I'll try my
because
best.
Here's the thing. Here's what I can tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with a lot of kids, right? I mean, I'm always trying to do the numbers on it, but it's somewhere like in the ballpark of like 5 to probably 8,000 kids over the years between workshops and camps and classes and private coaching, audition taping, seminars, and this and that and the next thing, right? Thousands of kids, right, that have come through our events and what have you. It's rare. It's very rare to meet a Will Buie at the age when I met you, which I think we said was you were
6 or 7.
7, yeah, probably about 7. You had something in your brain that was able to focus and something that was driven. Do you know what I mean?
I think that some of it, I think that I had a passion of like I always, since I was little, I always wanted, like, I wanted my dream, like, life. Like, I wanted to have everything that I ever wanted. And I think my parents, because they're so hardworking, and they both, like, started working when they were young, and they both of them have such good work ethics, and they're so determined and they're passionate. I think that I picked up some of their energy from them, and that's kind of what is, like, made me so passionate about, like, acting. And I say, like, because I'm using, like, one example, because there's also another thing that I'm super passionate about, which is cars, too, but that's a whole different thing. And the thing is with acting, I think some of it is about, like, my goals in life, like, what I really, because I've known what I want, like, out of my life. Like, I've known what I wanted for a really long time. Like, I've always known my pursuit of happiness, or, like, my mandate of, like, I don't know. I've always known what I want.
You've known sort of your North Star, the thing.
Yes.
Like, you've seen it. Like, you can see where you want to go.
Yes. And I think that... Which is to be successful and be happy and have all the cars that I want. And, like little things like that.
And by the way, that's not just to accumulate cars. You have an obsession of cars that is at the same level of your acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so just so people know that, it's not like you just want to buy a bunch of cars.
Yeah, not just
to
be like, I have a lot of cars.
Like, I literally, as a 43-year-old man, go to this teenage kid to ask about cars. And you pretty much always have some sort of insight, some knowledge. Opinion on it. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah. So you, even young, you sort of looked at it and you said, okay, like, I know I want to be successful. I want to be, and of course successful can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah, success is like, it's all relative. It's different to every person, their idea of success. And I feel like also some of it, a smaller portion of it, is maybe out of fear. Like, I'm always scared to like fail. I feel like failing and maybe not putting your best effort into something and not like trying your best or things like that, it just shows like weakness, or not weakness. It just shows that you truly don't have, like, being determined and having your goal and being dead set on that is something that's like really important in your life, because that's what helps shape you. For me.
Right.
For me. Sorry, I didn't specify. For other people, it's totally different.
Yeah. But I think that's interesting, right? Because most 7-year-olds aren't like, I know I want to achieve success. Mm-hmm. I am passionate. And then, so it's, if we're, because I like to dissect things, as you know, I like to break things apart and think about why do certain things function the way they function. In particular, human beings, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think what I'm most passionate about and most curious about is human beings. And I think my purpose is helping human beings become the best version of who they are, which just happened to work really well as an acting coach, right? But when I look at someone like you, at this young age, you're driven. You have this thing, you want to be successful, okay? You've got 2 amazing parents, who I personally know, who are awesome. And, they are not only hardworking individuals, but they are nurturing. They were supportive, obviously crucial for any young actor, right? I mean, I still don't think I have seen a successful young actor who didn't have an amazing support group, amazing parents behind them. And you have that.
Yeah.
You have amazing
Best
parents.
support group ever.
Yeah. Now, I've seen actors book jobs who's with parents that weren't the best, but then I've seen it take some bad turns.
Like maybe the parents were the ones who really wanted their...
Well, yeah, or they just, it success got to their heads a little bit, and, maybe... they suddenly decide they're going to fire their whole team, their agents and their managers and everything, because they were on set, hypothetically, they were on set and they met another parent who said, oh, you've got to be with this agent and this manager, and then so they decide, oh, yeah, because now I'm this, and
now
then
they're like, they have a better, like...
Yeah, and then they fire that one, and then they move on to another one, and then the kid and the parent become this package that other agents and managers are like, oh, you don't want to work with them.
They'll just
and
go
it can
through.
take it down. Yeah. So anyway, my point is, I think the parents are a crucial part of it, right? So you've got this mindset at a young age where you're determined. You've got parents who are not only hardworking as role models for you to see what it means to be hardworking, but also nurturing. So you've got that component, but also you found your passion at a young age, right? Because what was the first, Gifted, right?
Yeah, that was my first audition and my first...
Booking, right? I mean, you didn't have any dialogue, but you were...
I had one line.
Oh, you did?
It got cut.
Oh.
I said, how did he lose his eye?
Right. And they were like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
let's just...
Well, no, they gave it to another kid. I was like, oh, okay.
You're welcome.
No, because on set they were just like, okay, so just to see, we're gonna see what it would be like if this kid said that line, and I was like, okay.
And that's what they...
And then I saw the lead of the movie, who's truly one of my closest friends.
McKenna.
McKenna.
Yeah.
She texted me and she's like, so I just talked to the director. It's not gonna, the line maybe, you're like, I can't remember how that conversation went, but I was just like.
She's basically like, your line's gone. The other kid took it. Sorry, bud. Your face is still in it, but I do remember seeing.
I didn't know that it was given to the other kid until I watched the movie in the audition room, or not in the audition room. When I watched the movie in the movie theater, because we rented out a movie theater and we watched it, and then I saw the other kid saying my line. I was like, okay.
But hey, what a good humbling experience at a young age too, right? But so you were 6 or 7 when?
I think I might have just turned 8.
Just turned 8, okay. And probably auditioned for it when you were 7 or something. Yeah. But so at that age, at 7, you had your first opportunity to feel what it felt like to do this thing that you were passionate about. Mm-hmm. And so I think if we look at all those pieces, it actually makes sense, right? When people talk about it's luck, it's this and that, right? I don't like that concept because what that implies is that, you don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating to me because the people who I see that not just book a job, right? Yes, you could definitely say if you book one job, that could be luck, right? For sure. But if you're going to have longevity, if you're going to have a career in this, which you've had a career now. I mean, you're young, but it's still a career. I mean, some people do something for 5 years, 6 years, and that was their time in that career, and you've already had that, and then some. But even in that time, it makes sense to me that you've had that, especially just looking at all these pieces that came together in the beginning. And then all you did was you kept it going. You kept the momentum going. Now, that is a challenging part. You're welcome. But it's true. And, one of the things I love, the video of the writing out of the lines, right? Yeah. And I've now shown that video to so many students. And so you had your audition for Bunk'd.
Yes.
You came.
The most stressful thing I've ever done in my entire life.
Sure.
Ever.
Tons of dialogue, right? Like up and down, all Disney, high energy. You're flying out to LA, right, to do your first test, right,
Yes.
which is a chemistry
On that
test.
deal. Oh my! Here, I'll let you.
No,
continue.
go, no, yeah.
That test, because here's the thing: when you're creating a new character, a totally new character on a show that's already exist. Yeah. Anyway, it's a lot of times it's hard to decide what kind of character you want, right? So there's a lot of different ideas because there's a lot of different writers that have different ideas on what the new character could be like. So I was reading for like two totally different characters, and then one character that kind of had like two different like little personalities, and they were all like different scripts. So it's probably like 12 pages worth of lines, and it was also my favorite show at the time too. So a lot of the scenes, it was chemistry reading too.
And just to touch on that, 12 pages of lines.
Yeah.
Just so people can get a grasp on that. One page is typically 1 minute. 12 minutes, okay? About, ballpark, 10 to 12 minutes of dialogue. I want people to stop for a moment and think about memorizing something that's going to take 12 minutes to say. Imagine doing a 12-minute speech, right? And not only doing it, but doing it in this pressure situation. So I don't want to just jump over the fact that it was 12 pages. That's a lot of dialogue. And you were how old at the time?
10.
10, okay. So you have these different characters. You got 12 pages of dialogue.
Yeah, it was 12. So 12 pages, and then I think maybe half of the scenes was chemistry reading,
which
is basically where you do scenes with maybe one of the other new characters or one of the pre-existing ones that was on the show for a couple seasons already. And Bunk'd and Jesse at the time, and so I mean Jesse's one of my favorite, like, and so is Bunk'd, but I watched that show 24/7, like I would be like getting ready for the day on my phone, like watching like clips of Bunk'd. Like I loved that show
before you even
so
had
much.
the audition.
Yeah, but before I even had the audition, yeah, like it wasn't like, okay, so I got an audition for this, so now I'm gonna like watching it, and so because I'd already loved the show so much, and these characters like I grew up watching, and then I had to do scenes with them in front of maybe like 30 network executives in like this big room. Like I couldn't even say hi. Like I was like, I just looked at them.
Because you were so nervous.
Yeah, I was terrified. And Karin, who plays Ravi, we have the same managers at the time, and I remember like I got to have a little phone call with him before we went in and tested. We were in like the most tranquil place in the world, Sedona,
Nice.
And then I called him and I was just like, hi. And then he was like, hi, how are you? Are you excited to test? And he was like, I was just like, hi. I didn't say anything else other than hi. I literally just said hi. It was like a 30, 45-second conversation. I just said hi. And then that night, that was the big stressor where like we were deciding whether we wanted to like actually do this, because we had to sign the contract before we tested. And
right.
It was.
And when you do that, you sign a contract for quite some time, and I don't know if you can actually talk about that because it's a contract. But it's a big commitment.
Basically, like I had to prepare myself for being in LA for a lot of time because that's where it filmed. And at the time, my mom was still working full time, so she couldn't be there all the time.
Right.
So I had to spend time with a couple other people.
Yeah.
And like
they just go, Aunt Cindy, can you come in?
I said a couple other people like they're random.
They did another season of Bunk'd. You're like, who's this cousin who's watching?
No, like
this is cousin Billy. He's from Minnesota.
Oh,
how you doing? How you doing, Will?
like my grandparents or my au pair, and I was a mama's boy, and I still am, and I didn't want to be away from my mom, and
you were 10.
Yeah, and I had to prepare for that. Like my mom was like, "Well, you could be in LA without me, with your grandma for 3 weeks, and you couldn't see me." And then I was just like,
so she's setting the situation up before you signed the contract.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Gosh,
then,
I mean, it's just just thinking about all that. Okay, so to come back to where we started with
Yeah,
this.
sorry.
No, it's
I
great.
ramble.
No. Preaching to the choir, dude. I never know where I am, what I'm saying, or where I'm going to go. But that's what's fun.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And now other people get to hear it too. Maybe they'll like it, maybe they won't. Whatever.
Yeah.
So, so prior to that audition, prior to the test, right? And so people understand you audition for something, and then if they like you, typically they'll fly you out, right, for this test. So they can really make sure you're the right one. You're the chosen one for which now has been how many seasons of Bunk'd?
3.
No,
Yeah.
3 seasons.
Yeah, because it's 3 to 5.
3 to 5.
So
okay.
it seems like it's longer.
Right.
Because whenever there's word.
But how many years has it been?
4.
4 years.
Yeah. Because it started when I was 10.
Right.
Up to like
now.
14.
So
yeah.
4 years of your life.
Yeah. Like
That's a lot of time, right? I mean, so to go back to before you flew out to LA for the test, it's kind of mind-blowing to think about something that is going to be the next 4 years of your life.
It's a fourth of my life.
Yeah.
Up to this moment.
Yeah.
1/4 of my life.
Yeah.
Was is Disney.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I just turned 15.
Right.
And then up to 14, 4 years.
Yeah. Oh, more. A little more than 1/4.
I don't know my fractions.
Me neither. Let's not go any further with that. But the point is, a lot of your life has been on a Disney set.
Yeah.
Right? And it all started where you had this test, okay? So I like going back to that because it's so fun because this is the stuff that most people don't know, but at least my actors have gotten to see it because I got that video from your mom. So prior to you going out there, you've got all this dialogue and you're a little scared because like, okay, what if I mess up a line or whatever? So I gave you this technique to write out the lines, say them out loud, and do it over and over. And just talk a little bit about what you did and how that process went.
Well, when we flew out to LA, to even because we were just gonna go for like a little fun week-long trip just to go to LA, and we were like, okay, we'll just take a couple in-person auditions while we're there. It's LA after all. And then that was when I got my audition for Bunk'd. And then after I did that, the night that I flew back home, that was when I found out that I got the callback like test deal. And then I flew out like literally like the next morning. And then I think like there was like maybe 5 hours in between that period where we met up because I had the script, and then we were just like kind of going over it and like what I wanted to say, what I like how I was gonna prepare for it. And then that's when you told me to write down on my lines. So basically what it did is just every single chance I got, like 5-10 minutes of free time, I would just write down my lines. And I think that it was especially it was great back then too, because now it's so hard, and this is why I really like my phone upset, really it gets on my nerves, because back then I didn't have a phone. So I could just spend all of this time like reading over my lines, and now there's all these distractions and so many different things, that's why I just have screen time. My mom turns off my screen time. It's good. And then, so that way it's just back when I was 10 testing, and I just wrote down on my lines as many times as I could.
And writing all those lines down is a lot. So you just wrote down your lines over and over and over and over, and we're talking about 12 pages of script. So this is a lot of lines. And I remember when your mom sent me the video of you going through page after page. And I remember at one point going, is this going to end?
When is it going to end?
How many times did this kid write out? How many lines did this kid write out? And then when you said, I think I did it 4, 5, maybe 6 times. But the point is, all of that writing, that is a testament to your drive. To the drive that you have had since before Bunk'd, and the drive that you currently have. This is where people they talk about talent all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, you were a talented kid. There's a lot of talented kids, right? There's a lot of talented kids. But more importantly, you were talented, you were driven, you still are talented, still are driven, and you knew what you wanted and you had this passion and you were willing to do what it took to be who you wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, right? That's, to me, what separates those who really achieve that success versus those who don't.
And one of my favorite quotes that's like exactly about that, it's by Cristiano Ronaldo, and he said, talent without work is nothing.
Yeah, I've read, yeah.
And that's something like, that is something that I really take to heart, and that's kind of something that I live by. And of course, you get caught up in times, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm always like working and I just seem like I have everything together, because I don't. I mean,
well, no,
I don't have it together at
I don't have
all.
to get, in fact, if I had a scene right now, I would cry all over it.
Yeah, like, yeah, right. Like, and like, I don't want to paint that picture because no one's perfect.
Yeah.
And but when I say those things, that's like, I don't want to seem like that, but it's kind of one of those things that I want to live by when I'm older, like, because if you're talented and you have a good skill, that's great, but if you don't do anything to nurture that skill or practice on that, exactly what you were saying a second ago, then there's nothing there.
Totally agree, man. I totally agree. Dude, yeah. This is such fun stuff. I feel like we could talk for hours.
I could keep going.
I know.
Till the nighttime.
I know. Well, soon it will be.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, you have an audition right after this.
Yeah, like literally right after this.
Yeah, so you are going to do that. So we do have to get you to your audition.
Yes.
I have to get to my little girls because tonight is Violet's spring fling. So we're gonna go to this fun little thing, and I guess they'll be dancing and what have you. But yeah, man, I'm so proud of you, and it's really cool to watch you in your journey, to get to know your family better, to see just how much of an effect all of that work has had. The results, getting to see what you've done throughout this process. And it's so neat, too, because going from being a little kid to someone who's now looking at cars.
Yeah.
You know?
Looking at your first cars.
Yeah, looking at your first car and getting to see that whole process. For me, it's one of the coolest parts of my job because I get to feel like I've played a small part in that. But
big part.
Well, thank you. But more importantly, I get to watch it happen. And that's exciting for me. And there's not a doubt in my mind, man, that you will continue to be successful at everything you do. And, having you in my class assisting, which was so cool because...
It's such a cool experience.
Yeah, and it was cool for me, too, because, again, I got to see this kid who now is maturing into a young man and who is... responsible and caring and nurturing and just an all-around well-rounded human being. And that to me is what really matters, and
Thank
so
you so much. Seriously.
Yeah, it's fun, man. It's awesome. And we'll see what's next. We'll see what's next on the horizon, but
I'm excited.
thank you, dude.
Thank you for
right.
having me.
My pleasure. Tug it out.
Yes. Over my mug.
Over your mug.
Thank you so much for joining us on The Unseen Work. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. If you want to learn a little bit more about The Unseen Work, follow us on Instagram at The Unseen Work, and that is UNSCENE.